Paramatma and company of these wonderful people. We are blessed and want to start our day with a formal lamp lighting. I would like to invite Acharya ji, Vipender ji, Rakesh ji to please come forward. आगे
Finish with 2 minutes, we just do the ceremony and then we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
उधर से उनको भी दे दीजिए
Thank you. Gita.
Westchester County, and is a very strong and foundational member in the Hindu community, helping various organizations at different levels. So Jitendra ji, welcome, and his talk is going to be about Kena Upanishad. Yes. Is that recording on? Or?
Yes, it is on. Yes.
So,
Can you move it?
Testing 1, 2, testing. Namaste everyone. I feel very honored that I've been given this task of making the first presentation of the retreat. So my topic is going to be Kena Upanishad. Some of you may have heard about it or read about it. but I'll try to go as detailed as possible. Among the 11, there are 108 Upanishads. Among them, 11 are considered to be the most prominent one. And the suggested sequence of reading is the first one is Ish Upanishad. The second one is Ken Upanishad. Ish Upanishad is actually giving you a way of conducting your life, right from the time you're born to end of life. If you translate the mantras, there is a way of looking at it. It tells you how to conduct your life right from, imagine yourself graduating from college, you get a job and you have funds coming into you. Now you have to decide what to do with the money and then how to progress. Then you get married, you have a family, and it gives you how to Jivan Jeene Ki Kala, an art of living, It gives you a very comprehensive view on the art of living. And Ken Upanishad gets very grainier into it. It gets into the subtleties and nuances of this life. So, Ken Upanishad is also known as the Tavalkara Upanishad, and it is founded the Brahman Granth of the Samved. Samved, as you know, we have 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samved, Yajurveda, Atharvaveda, Samved. Samved, the focus of Samved is Upasana. It is basically an Upanishad that focuses on the devotion, how to conduct your devotion to the Almighty. It is in a very paradoxical language, and this Upanishad itself is an allegory. Many of you know what allegory is. If you want to convey a message, you wrap it around a story and then convey it so it becomes easier to understand and easier to digest. So this is an allegory, a dialogue between a student and a teacher, and a guru shishya parampara, it is actually following. It has 34 mantras over 4 chapters, and it's named after the first mantra itself, Ken. The word Ken basically means on whose command, on whose instruction, who is the one in charge giving the instructions. Next slide, please. So it is about a critical inquiry about who God is and how to identify God, and what is the path that we need to take for Upasana. Upasana basically means, as Acharya explained last night, an asana. The feeling of sitting very close to the divine, that is called Upasana. And benefits of actually realizing God in this life. Many of us try to postpone, I'm very young, I don't need to actually get into this. I'll get into it when I'm a little bit older. And then once you get old, and you get to a stage where you really don't get time, and you realize that you whiled away a lot of your time, something that you should have focused on learning about what the divine is, at least. And it also addresses, it says, what are the consequences of not realizing God in this lifetime. Next slide, please. I was listening to a presentation made by one of the Advaita scholars. So he gives a very beautiful bhumika or preface to the presentation on the Ken Upanishad. Maybe it's going to be better if I take the mic in my hand and stand there. Is it okay?
आप हाथ पे लीजिए, just take it out.
हाथ में I have a little bit of a problem with my hand. Yeah, this is better. So in the preface, this Vedantic scholar is talking about what are we all looking for in life, right? And that happens to be, incidentally, the theme of this retreat. We are all looking for happiness. Whether we are very young or whether we are very old, we are all looking for happiness. So some of the scholars pondered on the subject of happiness and they said, what is happiness? So after some deliberation, they came up with the conclusion that happiness is an experience. So, next. So, what kind of an experience? You know, we all, at a very basic level, deal with two entities. One entity is myself, and the second entity, let's call it the world. Second entity is everybody other than me. That is the world, that is my world. So when there's interaction between these two entities, it is the interaction between me and the world. So whenever I need anything to make me happy, I ask the world, and the world provides me that, and I'm happy. I'm hungry, I look to the world to provide me nourishment with food. They supply me the food, I eat the food, I'm happy. I want to get education, same thing, I present my need to the world, want to get married, want to get settled. All this is, I'm presenting my needs to the world, and the world is satisfying my needs, and I'm happy. So, the conclusion that we are coming to is my source of happiness is the world. So, because for every need of mine that makes me happy, I'm actually going to the world, and the world is providing. And at any time the world is not in a position to satisfy me, what do? I make corrections in the world. So we make changes to the world so that it comes up to my expectations. So what is world again? In the Vedic literature, world is made up of 5 elements. Agni, Jal, Vayu, Prithvi, Akash. These are the 5 elements. Agni is fire, Jal is water, Vayu is the air, Prithvi is the earth, and Akash is space. That's what the world is essentially made of. Now, if then that makes me a worldly person, or in other words, a materialistic person. So whenever I have concerns, whenever I'm not happy or looking for happiness, where I'm not looking inwards, I'm looking outwards. And that also makes me an extrovert. So, according to the scholar, 99.99% of the people essentially fall in this category. They are all looking to the world for happiness, and the world is providing them the happiness that they need. Whenever they are not satisfied, they are making corrections in the world so that they can continue to be happy. And even the scientists, even the engineers worldwide are working on these projects to make sure that the people who have a question in the world get satisfied through the work that is being done by the scientists and the engineers. Next slide, please. But there's a small percentage of people who are thinking differently. They are less than 0.1%. They started thinking a little bit differently. And a good case and example is, many of us got sick during the COVID times. And one of the symptoms of COVID fever is you lose taste in your mouth, right? So I'm fond of ice cream. And I usually love ice cream. It's the same ice cream that has been sitting in our freezer for the last week or so. I've been enjoying it before I got sick. when I was sick, I tried to taste the ice cream and I couldn't taste anything, right? So this actually changes that paradigm. So I'm looking to the world now. I was looking to the world, but that world is not giving me happiness anymore. I realize that it is not satisfying my craving. So then I begin to wonder, what is this happening? You know, why am I not? So my conclusion is, you know, maybe there is some inner adjustment that I need to make to enjoy the ice cream. Okay, take some medications, recover from my ailment, so that I can enjoy the ice cream. So it changes from looking at the world on the outside to maybe some inner adjustments within me to be happy. The other thing that I discover along the same lines is I find out that whenever my mind is at peace, no matter how chaotic the situation on the outside is, I'm happy. It doesn't matter there's an earthquake happening on the outside or a riot happening. It doesn't bother me because I'm at peace within, right? At the same time, when there's chaos within me, I'm upset, there are things that are bothering me. No matter how good or how pleasant the environment is, I'm not happy, right? There's a person living, on the beach, has the best home and a luxurious lifestyle, but there's no happiness within him. Is he enjoying life? No, it doesn't mean much to him. At the same time, the small farmer who is struggling, but whatever he does, he enjoys every bit of it, whether it gives him 1 meal or 2 meals in a day. He is contented and he is very happy. So this changes the concept of happiness, what is bringing happiness and what is not bringing happiness. So the conclusion is, so some inner adjustments need to be made for me to be happy. And not only that, when I start thinking about making an inner adjustment, I start looking into myself. And when I start looking into myself, I said, oh my God, I don't know anything about myself. I start off with my sense organs. I have these 5 sense organs, the eyes, the ears, the sense of smell, the sense of touch, and the sense of sight. These are the 5 sense organs that are actually feeding the information. They are actually supplying a lot of data to my mind. Now do I know anything about these? I am operating them, but do I know how my eye functions? Do I know what my ear functions? How my ear functions? Do I know how my speech is happening? So there are a lot of things that I don't know. This is basically the external sense organs. When I start thinking about my inner organs, whether it's the gastric system or my cardiac system or the renal system, no matter what state of I am in, I could be awake, I could be sleeping with a dream, or as Acharya mentioned earlier, I could be in Shushupti. Shushupti is a stage where even the mind is disconnected. Or the 4th stage, many of the people call Turiya, where you've totally disconnected from your body and you become basically an observer. And you are the observer and you are the observed also. You are observing yourself as a passive observer. You become, regardless of what that stage is, you feel that you don't have any control over the systems that are operating in you. So all these questions are leading up to the first question of the Ken Upanishad, where a student was pondering on this scenario that I went through earlier about looking at the cause of happiness and realizing that he doesn't know anything about whatever is happening within him. And the student also realizes that he has a lot of limitations. He begins to realize that there is some sentient power within me that is running all my systems, that is more knowledgeable than me, that is trying to keep me fit, input from me, you know, and that becomes a strange realization that there are so many systems running in my body and I don't know anything about them. And I know that they are my parts of my, I know that I'm in charge of them, but I really have little or no control over them. It appears that there's some other entity more powerful than me, more knowledgeable than me, who is actually running it regardless of what my state is, whether I'm awake, whether I'm sleeping, whether I'm disconnected with the mind, or whether I'm a passive observer. So somebody else is actually running this. So this leads to the first question of the, let's get into the Kena Upanishad. So this was just the preface of the Kena Upanishad. Let's go to the invocation. I'll read the invocation and give you a brief summary of it. So the invocation says, Om Apyayam Tamamangani Pranaschakshi Shotamato Balamendriyani Jasarmani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakaro Anirakaranam Meyastu Tatmanirte Ya Upanishad Dharmaste Mai Santu Te Mai Santu. In this invocation, our student is praying for the well-being of his body and his inner organs. He says, you know, I'm praying maybe all my systems be hale and hearty, may they be healthy, and the knowledge of the Upanishad that is within me, I don't want the knowledge to disown me, you know. At the same time, whatever I've learned, I will try to practice it. So he is making an earnest prayer that he is not going to renounce the knowledge. At the same time, he doesn't want the to dump him or reject him. You know, sometimes what happens, you get to a stage where somehow whatever you've learned, you end up forgetting. That is the way of actually giving up on the knowledge. So that way, the knowledge can disown you. You know, so that the essence of the invocation of the Kena Upanishad. Let's get to the next slide, please. So this is the brief translation. Next slide, please. Now this is where the student and the teacher dialogue begins. So the student is asking, Keneshitam padati presham kena prana praiti yuktaha Keneshitam vachamimam padanti chakshu shrotam kaudevo yanati. He goes to his guru after realizing the preface where we discussed as to what he's discovering of whatever happened to his sense organs and his inability to have any control over the sense organs or the organs within him. He's asking the question, he says, on whose command is my mind operating? I'm not giving it any instructions, but my mind seems to be working. Kena prana praiti, how is inhalation and exhalation happening? I'm not giving my nostrils any instructions to breathe in, breathe out. He says, praiti yuktaha, keneshitam vachamimam, how is speech happening? Am I preparing myself to deliver the speech, or there's some other entity behind it that's actually driving it? Chakshu Shrotam Kadevo Yanati. He asks, what is that divine force that is actually driving my eyes and my ears? Eyes to see, ears to hear. So, this is essentially a translation. Next. So the teacher is very, as we mentioned earlier, in Upanishad, the Guru also is a very different old school type of guru, where he does not want to spoon feed his student. He wants him to actually go back and do more research and actually find out for himself. So he doesn't give him straightforward answers. He prefers that he does more work so that he discovers or realizes it on his own. You know? So the teacher responds to his question and says, Shrotasya shrotam manaso mano yad vachoha vacham cha pranasya prana. He says the divine entity that is actually driving your sense organs is the ear of the ears. Shrotasya shrotam manaso mano. It's the mind of the mind. It's the eye of the eyes. He said there's a divine entity driving it, and I'm giving it this name, eye of the eye and mind of the mind. So, and then it says, Dhir Purush, these are the people who have advanced themselves spiritually. They are called Dhir Purush because they have Dhi. Dhi comes from Buddhi. Buddhi is where you have, can I get some water? Buddhi is basically you have the intellect discerning the right from the wrong. So these are the people who have advanced themselves, and what they do is they realize that whatever they are seeing, hearing, or whatever the sense organs are information that they are receiving, there's a divine component attached to it. They see the divinity of the information itself, and they make meaningful of that information that's actually coming to them. They don't while it away. They actually use it very meaningfully, and in the process, they liberate themselves or get on the path of liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Let's move to the next, please. So I already explained the meaning of it. Let's get to the next. So the student is still not satisfied with his guru's answer. He wants to know more about the divine entity driving his sense organs. He said, so the teacher says, Nattakam chakshur gacchati navad gacchati. He says, if you want to connect with the divine, your eyes cannot reach him. It is beyond the perception of your eyes. Navad gacchati. You can scream at the capacity of your lungs, but it's not going to reach him. Vagachati, no mano na vidmo. He says, even I don't know. Yes, the interesting point is even the teacher admits that even I don't know how to actually explain it to you. He said this is the way we've been taught by our predecessors. So there was a cycle of Guru, Shishya, Parampara going on for eons. And this has been the tradition of teaching the subject to their students. They said, this is the way I'm being taught. So this student is really confused, but he lets out, the teacher lets out a small clue in the next 5 or 6 mantras. Let's go to the next slide. Let's continue. Yeah. Go back. Go down. And one of the things that he says, the divine entity that's actually driving this organs, it is something between the known and the unknown. So the student is confused again. He says, what do you mean? It's neither known nor unknown. He just, the student is just mystified. He cannot make any sense out of it. And a lot of the language in the Kena is very paradoxical, just like I've been saying this. So this, there is a little clue, that is, can you go down? Yeah, here that mantra, basically then he gives a series of 5 mantras relating to each of the sense organs. The mantra says, Yadavacha anubhyudatam nyedavad vidyate tateva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yaditam upasate. He says that divine entity that is actually driving your sense organs, he says that divine entity is powering your vocal cords, yet your vocal cords cannot speak about him. It is powering your eyes, yet your eyes cannot see. It is powering your ears, yet your ears cannot hear him. You know, it is powering your sense of touch, yet you cannot touch him. It is powering your nostrils, and your nose cannot smell his presence. You know. So he says, Anubhyatam yad vacho anubhyutatam yena vag buddhate tateva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yaditam upasate. He says, know that divine entity actually powering your sense organs, yet you are unable to actually perceive him or see him. Know that divine entity to be God and not what you've been worshipping all along. That is the, if you want to do upasana of that divine entity that is powering my sense organs. So in a way, you can virtually be in a state, in a meditative state, you know. When I'm thinking about when I'm seeing something, I want to not only see something, but I also want to look at the divine power that is actually powering my sight, right? When I'm speaking something, I want to not only say something, but at the same time be aware of the divine powering my vocal cord. When I'm hearing something, I want to be aware of the divine entity that's powering my ears. So I'm in a virtual meditative state because I'm living in the present, because when I'm speaking, when I'm hearing, when I'm seeing, my attention is to that divine power that's actually powering these sense organs of mine. So let's go to the next. Let's go to the next. So these 5 mantras essentially, basically the clue that the teacher gave for him to know. But the student is still not satisfied. He says, all right, you know, if this divine entity is powering all my sense organs, how do I connect with him? You know, I cannot see him, I cannot perceive him, but there would be some way that I could connect with him. So in the next mantra, let's get to this. So the student here tries to ask another question to the teacher because he wants to know more about the divine entity. यदि मन्यसे सुवेदेति गब्रमेवापि नूनं त्वं वेत्तत् ब्रह्मणो रूपं यद्यस्य त्वं यद्यस्य च देवेश्वथ नुमिमांस्यामेव ते मन्ये विदिता. Let's go to the next page. So here this is where the student is coming back and saying, how do I learn more about this divine entity? So the student apparently skims through some pages that comes back to the teacher and says, you know, I think I know something about this divine entity. So the teacher says, if you think you know something about him, you really don't know anything about him. It is time for you to go back to the books and study some more. You know? So he takes this logic a little bit further. He says, a lot of people who come down and claim that I can go to a book and read it and think that I know. If you think that you know, you really don't know. He said there are people who have pondered on this subject for decades, and they have come to a realization that they don't know this divine entity. So he said they know, they are the ones who have pondered on this subject for decades together, and they've come to a realization that they don't know God. He said they have understood, they have realized God. You know? So it is very paradoxical, so it appears a little strange. So let's move on. Now, Vedeti, here again the student is coming back and saying, I think if I really put my heart and soul to it, maybe I can know a little bit about God, So this is kind of dialogue going on. Let's move to the next. Yes, this is where I covered this. Go to the next one. Continue. So here the teacher says, the student has really a quest. He says, how do I connect with this divine? Show me a way that I could connect with him. So the teacher says, Pratibodha vidatam mano tattvam hi vindate, atmana vindate viryam vidya vindate amritam. So he basically says, in Hindi the word bodh basically means I have realized something. So when I have input coming in from the outside world, it is hitting my sense organs. I say that mujhe bodh hua. That means I've realized the information that came from the outside. I've realized that information. I've understood that information. So the teacher says pratibodha. Pratibodha is opposite of bodh. Basically, if you stop the input from coming into your from the sense organs into your mind, now basically what happened is you shut off sources of input into your mind, so the mind has nothing else to do. So they say that between the divine, God is within us. He says between the mind, between the external world and God, the barrier is basically of the mind. As long as the mind is a devil's workshop, there is no information going on from this soul to the divine, from my soul to the divine soul. Because the mind is very busy as a chatterbox, because it's being bombarded with information. So if the input to the mind stops, my Atma can connect with the Paramatma, my soul can connect with the divine soul. So that is what the teacher is actually telling him. So the barrier is the mind, quieten the mind so that Atma and Paramatma can connect and communicate. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I described this already. Let's go to the next one. So he says, all right, if I don't seize this opportunity of actually realizing God in my life, this lifetime, as I mentioned earlier, I while away, don't get into upasana, and what are the consequences of me whiling away my time without realizing God and waste my life away. So the mantra says, "Eh chedavedi satyabhakti no chedi halvedi mahati vinashti bhuteshu bhuteshu vichitta dhira pretasma lokadamrita bhavanti." So he says, it's a colossal waste of your time if you do not realize God in this lifetime. Because you don't know whatever karma file looks like, whether you will get another opportunity to realize God or not. So you don't know the next time when you take birth, what form you will come back in. And if you come back in a certain form where you again have this impediment of realizing God, so you really don't know for ages to come that you may not be in a position to realize God. So he says, seize the opportunity and try to connect with Him now. So next slide, please. So it says, if one could know the supreme reality in this life, for him it's a super blessing. On the other hand, if one could not know it, then there is a great calamity for him. So this is again essentially explaining this, hence having realized the presence of Supreme One in all beings, men of mature wisdom become immortal and depart from this mortal life. Go, you liberate yourself from the cycle of birth and death. If you realize God in this life, then you don't have to go through the cycle of birth and death. And this is what they call it moksha. This is what they call it liberation. There are so many terms. So this is next slide, please. So then the allegory has a story to actually explain to you the role of the divine. Many of us take it for granted. We think that we are the ones doing it, and we don't give credit to the divine that is working behind the scenes to make us realize whatever we are doing. So the story goes that there are these 5 elements that we spoke about. This was prior to the periodic table. There were 5 elements that form this earth: Agni, Jal, Vayu, Prithvi, Akash. So they started feeling very proud, all these 5 elements, saying that we are the ones who are responsible for this creation, and it is really all our doing. So they take the credit for themselves. They don't realize the agental cause. God was the agental cause. These were the material causes. You can have the materials, but the materials cannot actually form by themselves. There's got to be a carpenter. There's got to be a blacksmith. Involved in actually putting this entire thing together. So they start gloating, and somehow God comes to know. Again, this is a story. Take it that way. So God somehow comes to know. He says, maybe it's time for me to go and actually teach them a lesson. So God comes in the form of a spirit, and into the same neighborhood where these 5 elements were residing. And one of the leader of these 5 elements said, looks like there's some stranger in the neighborhood. Why don't you go and check out? So he sends the air to represent. They sent Vayu. He said, why don't you go and confront him and see what he's about? So the Vayu goes there, the air goes there, and meets with this spirit. He says, who are you? He said, why don't you give me your introduction? He says, I'm air. So what is your specialty? He says, I can blow this entire universe, out into the sky, and everything will get fragmented. So the spirit pulls out a small blade of grass and puts it in front of him. He says, why don't you blow this out and see? So he uses the air all his might, yet he's not in a position to actually blow that blade of grass away. Then he realizes that, I don't know what was unique about this blade of grass. I should go back and report to my boss, who's in charge of all these 5 elements. He goes back, so the boss sends the fire element. He says, why don't you go and check it out? Same thing happens with the fire element. He says, on fire, I could burn this entire universe. I'm very ferocious, and I have a lot of strength, and I've done this, I've done that. He says, all right, let me see your capability. And another blade of grass is put in front of fire. He says, why don't you burn this? Again, the fire tries its might and is unable to do anything to this blade of grass. He realizes, runs back to his boss, and basically says, and that's what happens with water. That's what happens with the other elements also. Finally, the boss, Indra is the manager of all these sense organs, or of these 5 elements. He said, maybe I should go and check him out. So when Indra goes there, the spirit has disappeared, and his place, and Uma, a lady Uma, shows up. So he says, I heard that there was a spirit in the area. Can you tell me a little bit about who that spirit was? Where did it go? He says that's what the divine actually basically trying to test you, that all this pride that you have, that you are the only five elements that created this universe. You totally disregarded the agental cause where God was involved in the process, and you were totally disregarding that. He wanted to teach you a lesson, and this is what the mission was. It was God who was here, and He's no more. That this Uma actually basically, the Indra actually represents, among the five sense organs, it represents the mind. Once the mind realizes that what is actually happening, why are my sense organs failing one after the other, so the mind has to probe into it. And once the mind goes there, but your intellect, once you awaken the intellect, you realize that what you really know and what you really don't know. You realize where to give credit and where not to take credit. So this was a little story that wrapped on the power of God, that many of us take it for granted. So in this short story, they're trying to make you realize that there's not only a material cause, but there's also an agental cause. If you bring bricks together, you need a bricklayer to actually build the, just by bringing bricks alone will not satisfy it. You bring wood, you still need a carpenter to come down and cut the wood as it's supposed to be and actually build the house. So I think I'm going to stop here, unless anybody has any questions. So the summary of this thing is basically we have to realize that in our lives there's a divine component that is responsible for practically each and everything. And how do I connect with that divine component? It said, Pratibodha Viditam Vidya Vindate Vidya Vindate. It says you cut the input to that's coming to your sense, to your brain. That way, you're in a quiet place where nothing is disturbing your mind. So now your soul can connect with the divine soul. So that is, and then I've answered your question in the one of the mantras. It basically says if you don't realize the divine in this life, consider it to be a colossal waste. If you realized it, nothing could be better than it. And this is where I end my talk. Thank you very much. All of you listening patiently, it means a lot.
This is not a question. So, every time would like